bringing you the latest news from Lubbock Cooper Athletics. This is the Pirate Fan Zone podcast from 100.7 The Score.
Welcome back into the high school fan zone on a Wednesday night. Almost said Tuesday night. My days are still messed up. I went out of town for a couple of days, and I don't know which day's coming and going. But it is Wednesday night because Chip Darden's over there to my far left. I had to make sure he knew how to get here. I haven't seen him in a month.
Yeah, nice of you to invite me back. Randy hadn't been inviting me to these.
I just keep showing up and hoping Chip's here. He's finally here, and he brought Ryan Rodriguez, who's I've become like the Ryan Whisperer. I can get him to react and smile. Last year when he was a sophomore, you'd say something to him, and he'd look at me like I was trying to steal his candy or kick his dog or something. So he's loosened up a little bit. I ask your teammates about you all the time just to see what their reaction is. Oh, yeah, he talks a lot more. In fact, who was it, Chip, that told me the other day that he actually scolded somebody in the huddle, which you want your quarterback to?
Yeah, I can't remember who that was.
Might have been no, it's probably Cash. Cash likes to.
Yeah.
It's something in that family. They like to make sure they've got. So that goes back to where that goes back to. So. Well,
and that's the thing about this one here is it's just a difference in having a full year under your belt and being in that position and. So yeah, he's not the most vocal, but I think says stuff when it's needed, and usually I don't know if scold would be the word, but usually there's a positive tone to it. So
commands the huddle.
That's there we go.
I'll throw my writer abilities out there. Ryan, when you talk, make sure you hold that up close.
Yes, sir.
And that has nothing to do with being soft-spoken, I promise. Second-year starter, and knock on wood, possibly a third-year starter if everything stays even keeled. And you guys haven't had that very often at Lubbock Cooper. When Coach came to you before last year and said, okay, you're going to be our guy, you're a sophomore. I've got a daughter your age at home, and I'm trying to think how she would respond to somebody handing her that much responsibility. If she's listening, she's going to kill me because she thinks she's responsible. When Coach told you that, how did you kind of absorb that as a sophomore?
I think the first main feeling was almost surprise, but, I knew I won the job, and then when I kind of talked to my parents, my dad was the main one who talked to me, and he told me, you like when people when you watch the NFL, you watch the quarterback. When you watch college, you watch the quarterback. So he told me you're gonna have to own up to the responsibility, and I think part of where I, own up to my actions rather than pointing the finger, I get that from my dad.
Yeah, that's what's the cliche. The quarterback gets the most credit and the most blame of any position in any sport.
Now we've got a funny story with our team. Last year there was a play. We've got different signalers, and in that moment my brother was signaling the play, and signals one. Well, we run the play that was signaled, and it wasn't what was called, what we were meaning to run. And so we're kind of getting after Ryan, and Ryan comes over and he says, that's my fault. And then my brother said, I signaled that wrong. That was my fault. But Ryan still took the blame, even though he did exactly what he was supposed to do. So, that's a character trait. I don't think all quarterbacks do that. All players. I don't think all coaches do that. I think it's a sign of leadership when you're willing to take some blame, and even when it's not your fault.
I think that's going to be awkward at Thanksgiving now.
And it's always that's pretty tame.
Yes, I can imagine. I've been around your family members enough, so. Ryan, he's told me that story before. I wasn't going to bring it up, but he did. So when you hear your coach mention that story about you, so your secret's out. You did your part, but coaches knew. Where did that come from? Is that just you're the oldest child, right?
Yes, sir.
So you kind of got that built in a little bit, because I'm sure Meg was the one who took all of the responsibility growing up in the Darden house.
Let's keep this on right.
But where did that come from? That sense of responsibility, is that kind of what you were talking about when you're the quarterback? You just have to. Yeah,
I think as far as a leadership standpoint, that's mostly where it would come from. And then, like I said earlier, my dad just being a man rather than trying to blame other people, point the finger at other people.
And you're going to have to, I know he doesn't want us to talk much about baseball. We're going to talk a little bit about it. You're going to be one of those leaders for a really good baseball team again next year. Third baseman, maybe throwing the ball from the mound a little bit. You take that with you from one sport to the next?
Yeah, I would say, when it comes to baseball, there's not much taking the blame, because I think, when you mess up, you're kind of just by yourself.
Yep, you're out there.
You'll make an error, and then you'll walk back to third base just, shaking your head. But I think when it comes down to it, it's always about the next play, and I think I carry that in football and in baseball.
And
I've always said, Randy, I'm cutting you off, but I've always thought that
I know what he's going to say here too.
Yeah, like all sports help each other, but I think baseball in particular, at that position, it's a lot of quarterbacks are pitchers, and I mean that's a tough spot to be on the mound, or being a position player that you do. I mean, you make errors. 1 out of 3 is really good in baseball, and so the 2 out of 3 that you don't get a hit. I mean, it's just a lot of responsibility, and I think teaches leadership.
At least your last 3 quarterbacks have all been really good baseball players, so that you're kind of. And then you look across town, Holden Phillips is as good a baseball player as there is in Lubbock right now, and he's been a pretty good quarterback this year
pretty damn
too.
Good. Yep.
You guys played Abilene Cooper last week at home, 49-17 win, 3-0 in district, correct?
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure I got it right. This week you go up tomorrow, actually Thursday night, at Dick Bivens Stadium against Palo Duro. Chip and I talked earlier this week. Palo Duro's 0-2 in district, but that's a little bit misleading. They're running the gauntlet here right off the bat. They lost to Wichita Falls Memorial and Abilene Wiley, but they're the city champs in Amarillo, and as we think that hasn't happened since 2002, 2003. That's a big deal up there.
Yep.
You kind of talk about what you told me the other day, what you told your guys about how big that is to Palo Duro.
Yeah, that's something that means a lot. I think that program, an interesting thing on our end is that we've never played them, and so we don't have any background of what they've been or what, any history. We just watch the tape, and I think when we put on the tape, we see a really good football team and see a team that's well coached, that does things right. And they had one like last week that just kind of snowballed on them.
Yep.
They had some turnovers and turnovers that go for scores that you can't count on in games, and just kind of happens that way sometimes. But they're really good, and winning. I think winning a city quote unquote championship. You beat everybody in Lubbock, you beat everybody in Amarillo, whatever it might be. There's something to be said for that, but when you're beating storied programs like Amarillo High and Tascosa, that's a big deal. And so a lot of momentum, I think, in the program, and we know that coming into it that we've got a really tough game against a good team, and that's what you want this time of year.
On the road in Amarillo, that's always going to be tough, no matter what time of year it is. That is 7 p.m. Thursday at Dick Bivens Stadium. It's right here on 100.7 The Score. Pirates and Dons, that's one of my favorite high school mascots out here, the Dons. We'll be back to talk more about that game on the Pirate Fan Zone on 100.7 The Score.
Breaking down Lubbock Cooper sports. This is the Pirate Fan Zone podcast from 100.7 The Score.
Welcome back into the Pirate Fan Zone. I'm Randy Rosetta. This is 100.7 The Score, as you heard. Chip Darden is to my far left if you're watching on TV. Quarterback Ryan Rodriguez is in the middle. Before I jump back into their game with Palo Duro, I'm going to zip through the radio schedule here for Raymar. As I mentioned, tomorrow night, Lubbock Cooper at Palo Duro, 7 p.m. right here on 100.7 The Score. Abilene High comes up and plays Lubbock High at Lowry Field. That's on another network. That'll be with our friends Rob Bro and Mark Bro. Friday night, Friendship goes to Midland Legacy on Double T 97.3, 7 p.m. kickoff. Coronado's at home against Caprock, 7 p.m., 96.9 The Bull. Monterey goes up to play Tascosa at Dick Bivens Stadium Friday, 93.7 The Eagle. Liberty hits the road for their first district road game at Borger, 7 p.m., 93.1 Yes FM. Let's see, Idalou and Roosevelt are in Idalou on Sunny 97.7 FM. Another game not on our network here, but Estacado goes to Perryton, 7 p.m. Nick Long with the call on that one. You ever played? You ever gone up to Borger or Perryton?
Oh yeah, we were in their district when I started.
Whew, that's a long way up
Ask Joe
there.
About Perrington. There's an ING in Perryton sometimes. Ask Joe about that. Yep. No, that's a long way, but travel anywhere for a win, though.
Yes, you will. Joe Cluley told me that when Estacado used to go up there, that if they'd forgotten anything, they had to drive across 2 state lines.
That's right.
To get to the Walmart in Liberal, Kansas.
That's exactly right.
Can you imagine having to play that close to not just one state, but
I can't think of anything that came from Kansas either. So.
Well, that's true. There's probably some accuracy there. But you guys don't have to go as far. You have to go far enough. And Palo Duro is a team that started off. Actually, they did lose a game to Canyon. They won the city championship, which, if you don't know, folks, what that means is Palo Duro beat Tascosa, Caprock, and Amarillo High all in the same season, which they haven't done since Steve Parr was the coach back in the early 2000s. They lost to Canyon, but that was a 26-23 game, and that Canyon team is usually pretty feisty. Hit the hard times a little bit these last couple of weeks against two teams that you guys are getting ready to face here pretty quick, Wichita Falls Memorial and Abilene Wiley. But this is Eric Mims, I'm trying to think what it would be, his fourth year. He's a Palo Duro graduate, came back to coach at his alma mater. His brother, Ernie's a good friend of mine, was a basketball coach at Coronado. What have you seen this year I know you haven't played him, but you've kind of kept up with him because of the friendship with Eric. When you've seen them, how have they grown under him these 4 years?
Yeah, I think some things that I look at are how, and not that I'm going to go around and judging programs necessarily, but I watched JV game tonight, watched how their kids competed, watched how their kids executed. I know their freshmen beat our freshmen. Our freshmen have had a pretty good year. So that's where I start. I feel like coaches that really, really pour into their sub-varsities, they're trying to build a program. And so I think you can see that. And to me, if that's about how long he's been there, 4 years, you see the fruits of that labor. And now their varsity is really, really competing at a high level.
And I don't want to put you in that spot, so I'll say it. He had to clean up a little bit of a mess when he got there. They had kind of dipped from the tradition that Steve and his sons had built up, and Caleb Holt and a lot of those guys that were on his staff that came down to Coronado with him. It took some rebuilding. It took some restoring of belief. And that you can get good players, you can win a lot of games, but restoring the belief in what guys are doing is kind of what you were talking about. They believe they can play well and win now.
Absolutely. Got a good coaching staff. I think that shows on film too. Just
got one or two NFL guys.
Yeah, they do. But just you can tell how they're coaching kids. Kids are playing with good technique and getting lined up correctly and things. I mean, that's just stuff that shows up on film. You're able to see it. So that's what we've seen at them.
So Ryan, coaches can see that on film. They can tell you, you've got to do this, this, and this. You're a quarterback. What do you see on video when you see Palo Duro? What do you have to be ready for tomorrow night?
I think they're all athletic, and like you said earlier, they may be out of spot, but I think with their speed and athleticism, it's unnoticeable on the field. And then, they're all athletes. They're all fast. They're all quick, and I think that'll be something to pay attention to.
Because you guys have plenty of those guys too, and it's just a matter of sometimes the chess pieces, whose athletes make the bigger plays and win.
Yeah, and I think every game, I think no matter who you're playing, if you win the line of scrimmage, you got a chance of winning the game. But that's one thing about them. I think for sure on defense, their front seven it's just their defensive line and linebackers are really good. And so I think that as much as both sides, I think, have athletes that you like to get the ball in space, I think it's going to come down to the offensive and defensive lines.
And we'll talk about some of your guys who are ready to do that, how things have changed a little bit offensively the last couple of weeks, for not necessarily for the better, just for the different. When we come back on the Pirate Fan Zone, Lubbock Cooper goes to Palo Duro Thursday night on 100.7 The Score. We'll be right back after the break.
Bringing you the latest news from Lubbock Cooper Athletics. This is the Pirate Fan Zone podcast from 100.7 The Score.
Welcome back into the final segment of the Pirate Fan Zone. We're talking to Chip Darden and Ryan Rodriguez. I didn't really talk much about the Abilene Cooper game because I wanted to focus on, since you guys play not even 24 hours from now, you kick off about 23 hours from now. But that was a pretty solid win. Chip and I did talk about it earlier this week. You guys came out and took care of business, and the thing that's been cool with you guys to watch you evolve, not that this part's, I hate that Jackson Austin got hurt and that you guys don't have him, but you guys you've rallied the troops, and I think a lot has to do with this young man. But you have guys that are, you've said this, I've seen this quote a couple times, you don't replace Jackson Austin with one guy. You find other guys a lot of guys who can do different things. And where are you guys at in that process?
Yeah, it's about replacing the production, and I think we've done a good job of that. I think some of it, like you said, is Ryan and I hope you want me to talk about Ryan a little bit, but and it's okay. Deuce Johnson, it's R.J. Florence have done a good job, but Ryan with his feet, Ryan had a couple carries the other night that are just big. I mean, getting 30 yards here or there just keeps the defense honest. And Ryan he may not want me saying this, but he was sick all day Friday. I didn't, in my mind, didn't think he was going to play until our first group goes to warm up at about 5:50. About 6 o'clock, I finally was like, okay, I think he's going to give it a shot. But in my mind, I thought he might go a series or two, and then he ended up having one of the best games of his career. He was 12 or 13, about 173 touchdowns, and his one incompletion was a throwaway in a 2-minute situation. Was maybe Coach Darden's favorite throw of his of the day, and we ended up scoring on that drive. So I think I told you in warm-ups maybe it's your Jordan flu game coming, and it was pretty impressive. Yeah. So
piggyback on that, Ryan, because you lose a guy like Jackson. Jackson's a security blanket in a lot of ways. There's just a lot of things you could just get him the ball and say, go make a play, go get us 10 yards, go get us 3 yards when we need it. You don't have that, but you have maybe more weapons. Of course you got more weapons because there's more guys. How have you guys kind of emotionally, mentally gotten to that point?
I think emotionally it showed the first week without him when we played Plainview.
Yes.
I think that's the main week when, it was a Thursday game as well, and then just everyone just kind of still heartbroken from Jackson, and then, some guys were trying to do too much, and I think I tried doing too much. And I talked to Coach Darden, I think it was our last drive, I think, and just told him, I thought I was doing too much, and I just need to relax and give the ball to our guys.
You've got guys to give it to,
mm-hmm.
and one that Coach and I have talked about too is Cade Gant. He's not coming out of the backfield, but he's doing some things that Ryan did, maybe a younger Jackson, a younger Jackson did when he had kind of morphed into a different role. You know Michael Deaver's going to make home run plays. You're going to get the ball to him, but you got to have 2 or 3 other guys that can do things when you're trying to throw it to him. And Cade seems like one that's kind of become a little bit of that security
mm-hmm.
blanket for you.
Yeah. He's a good friend. Our freshman year, we were on freshman teams together, and he was the guy freshman year. So I think as far as a relationship standpoint, he knows where the ball will be. I'll know where he'll be. So having guys like him plus Mike is a good thing to have in the offense.
Yeah, that's not a bad guy to just throw the ball up and say, I bet he goes and gets this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and their connection, Ryan and Cade's, it has been fun to watch through the years. And even last year, Cade was mainly on JV, but a couple games came up and had a role. And they've got a lot of faith, a lot of trust in each other, and so that's good. Because I think if didn't have that, when you got just one receiver, they can double him, they can do things to take him away. But I think we're able to spread the ball, and that's ultimately the long answer to your question. I think that's what we've been able to do is spread the ball around quite a bit and spread some production around.
And I can't let you out of here without the tight end topic that you brought up the other day, because I was a tight end. So You've got to tell me about the tight ends, how they've kind of adjusted and.
Yeah, and I'll throw the O-line just for this past week. I thought it was our O-line tight ends best game, I think, overall. But yeah, Cash, Trube, East, and Barnhill. We've had we run a lot of 2 tight end stuff, but even in the 1 tight end, they're doing a great job. Couldn't be more proud of them. And I think again they're doing some different things that. Complement each other and not necessarily maybe one doing all the things and doing a really good job of how they complement. And Ryan's getting faith and throwing to those guys too and making us a lot better on offense.
And I think it's fair to say Cash has got the best hair of the Truby family.
Yeah, for sure. Way better than Dad.
Well,
for sure.
I wasn't going to say it because he'll text me about it whether I say it or not. So Lubbock Cooper goes to Palo Duro 7 p.m. Thursday right here on 100.7 The Score. We'll be back after the break with the Patriot Fan Zone.